We're going to be starting to take out the kingpins and put new kingpin bearings in there and stuff, and a few other parts, rotors and stuff. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where this is, the locking hub. Make sure everything's lined up, because it only really goes in one way, but it's easier if it's marked. So we'll just take these out. These are 10mm bolts. Get these out, take the hub off. Okay, so taking off the brake caliper, and you tie it off up to the side. This, you need a pickle fork. Sometimes you can take a big hammer and just tap this, what it's screwed into. You don't hit the tie rod end itself. Sometimes that'll pop it out, but you got to use, in this case I had to use a pickle fork. And if you don't want to mess up the rubber seal, put up a lot of grease around here and work it in perfectly. Then you knock it out, and you more than likely you won't mess up the rubber seal. If you don't put a bunch of grease on it and you don't work it in there right, you're more likely going to tear up the rubber seal. So just take this. This is the brake caliper bracket, comes off, and I can pull off the rotor. Yeah, so this is, if you're looking at these brake pads, you're probably wondering, they look a little different from a Suzuki Samurai. Well, they are, because these are from an 85. I think it's a 1 year only too, I'm not even sure. And I was looking at these clips, these anti-rattle clips. You see how they are? I gotta make sure to get them in there right, so I put them back on. But I should have the right brakes. I had to order them from India. I'm not sure if the rotors are one off too. I'm not sure about them either, but I ordered those from India. Hopefully they're right. Or no, I think I got this from the United States. I had to get the brake pads from India. So if you got an SJ410 or an SJ413, you might not be able to get the parts from the United States. Well, these kingpins are definitely screwed up, because when you turn this, it's like rough. You know, like indexes right here. See that? They're dead screwed up. They're not turning freely. They're like rough, and they'll wow. Oh well. So these two bolts up here for the caliper mounting bracket, and these four are for the back plate. So you can see which way that goes. You know, it's the top part is, you know, that part right up there. That's the top part. So take this off. Yeah, start unbolting some more stuff here. Yeah, I want to show something I did on this thing about 25 years ago. So this is kind of how it goes together. It is how it goes together. This comes off, and you got your shield for the disc brakes. I noticed the brakes got to go on there too, but this is the spindle, and there's the plate. On this, I guess you call this the knuckle housing or something for the kingpins. You notice I put a grease fitting over here. I drilled a tiny hole through it, but I didn't tap all the way through. I just put a tiny 1/16 of an inch hole through. Then I tapped part way through, and I put this grease fitting here about 25 years ago. And I did grease the hell out of it, but eventually the bearings got indexed, so they just wore, but they were greased. There's plenty of grease in there. That's one good thing. They weren't rusty. There's no water in there, nothing like that. But I guess they still wear out eventually anyway, because as you're going straight forward most of the time, they're going to kind of wear in that position. That's where they get a little loose. But there was no rust in there or nothing. This might be a good, this probably is a good idea to have this on here stock. Put that grease fitting on there. And then the kind of grease you want to use is the best grease there is for, like marine grade, CV joints, wheel bearings, and all that kind of stuff. And because it's, but you could fill that whole damn thing up with grease, and then this way it should give you some life. But you got to remember, this thing is what, 35 years old, so about time for some kingpins. Well, I just noticed something. The even though I looked up the part and they said that fit this car, you know, they said it's an 85 SJ413. Well, this got six lugs in it, and the one I got, the rotors I got, have 5. So like the spindles and the hubs, or whatever the hell it is, the hubs have 6 lugs in it too. So I guess you could change all Samurai stuff out and use the regular Samurai freaking rotors, and I guess everything could fit. But I'm going to get the right rotors for it. So I'm going to just do the one side with the kingpin for now, and when I get the rotors in, I'll finish it up. So I'll finish it up tomorrow. We just do the one side, but the brakes, there's enough meat on the brakes still, and I think even if I just do the one side for now, it's gonna it'll correct most of the problem anyway. So, but yeah, they're different. That's what sucks about ordering stuff online. But if I ordered it locally, they probably wouldn't have this shit anyway. Well, I just replaced the spindle axle bearing bushing, and these are pressed in here. Probably didn't need to change it, even though it's got 200,000 miles on it. It's not a lot of it's in 4-wheel drive. So, you know, I changed it anyway since it was out. It's pressed in here. To get it out, you gotta put some like old socks around here, put this in a vise, and then right where this notch is, right here, you get a screwdriver. I use this hammer, start tapping around, and you work your way around until it starts popping up, and then you can get it from the inside and knock it out. It is in there tight. Then when you put it on, you put a piece of wood under here, piece of wood over here, and you hammer it down. It goes in there and make sure it's flush. And you can see I painted this thing, and I painted a couple other parts, cleaned them up. I'll go over this with the nylon wire brush on a drill and clean all the mating surfaces up. When this goes on, this gets some RTV. This bolts up to the I guess you call it knuckle housing for where the kingpins go in. So this gets RTV on there because you don't want any grease leaking out of there or nothing like that. Yeah, again, I wanted to remind you about my little handiwork about putting this grease fitting on here. To me, this is one of the smartest things in the world. It doesn't interfere with anything. The burr-full joint is inside there. The grease fitting doesn't come through here. There's a little, you can see there's a little hole. The grease comes through there. But you can fill this whole thing up with grease. The bearings themselves, I don't know if I could have, what I think it was the one part of the kingpin, like when it's straight forward, that one edge wore. So like it indexed. There was a little bit of play in the kingpins only when the car was going perfectly straight forward. But there was plenty of grease in there. I probably could have got away with just taking out the kingpin from this one and this one up here, putting some RTV on it and slapping it back in there again, because the bearings didn't look bad and nothing else looked bad in there. Probably could have got away with that because I did this. Because normally when you take these out after like 20 years or 30 years, this thing down here, it gets water in here, it's all rusted, it's all corroded and shit. This thing was all filled up with grease, man. Marine grade, you know, maybe not for CV joints, but shit works. It's like, you know, the best synthetic freaking marine grade grease there was. That's what I filled it up with. So that should be on there from factory. That would save a lot of freaking money. That's, to me, I think I said this already, but man, that's the best shit in the world. So, you know, you're not going to screw nothing up. It's not making the part less strength or nothing like that. It's just going to work. I'll just go around here and just clean these fucking things up a little bit with some of the nylon wheel. Okay, I'm getting it together. Just laid the knuckle up here just to make sure everything fits on there. Getting this on here, this was actually kind of a chore. You got to really stretch it over there hard with a screwdriver. You got to make sure, see the lip, it's got to fit in there like that. Everything else is 2 pieces. My felt washer is actually 2 pieces. There's 2 metal halves. There's a top half and a lower bottom half that goes before this with the lip facing in. Then there's a felt, then this rubber thing. There's a felt thing, which is there's a left and a right. It's not one piece on mine. And then there's a left and a right metal piece that goes over that. These are the bearings, races I tapped in. Also, I marked their match set. So this is the bottom one. This is the bottom bearing that goes with the race, right? And So that's marked, because that goes in there. You don't mix them up. They're designed as a set. To get them in there, I started doing it with a piece of wood, and I said, it doesn't work. It's too tight of a fit. So I started tapping it real light with this big hammer, but I said, wait a minute, I got a brass hammer. So I use this. I use this brass hammer. That worked fine. You got to make sure it's all the way up to the edge. It's in there tight, and you might not have it all the way up to the edge. That's one problem. You got to watch. Just make sure it's all the way up to the edge. This rubber seal, it was easily pried out with these, and I tapped it in with this, which is the exact right size for that, and just tapped it in there. It went in real easy. Make sure there's lube on here. And next step, I'll be installing a CV joint, packing this all up with grease, and putting this thing on. Actually, remember I said it freaking 5 times already maybe, but I got to emphasize it because maybe people don't watch the whole video. But you see this? Oh, it's on here. On this grease fitting, it's on a knuckle. It's not on this. It's on a knuckle. See where I installed it? Towards the front, an angle grease fitting, and it fills up this whole knuckle. You can fill up this whole knuckle. And I know you're supposed to use special CV joint grease, but you know, if there's grease in there and it's freaking solid grease, you're pretty good. I could have probably, I think I definitely could have got away with just changing the kingpins. They were like worn out on, just like in here, you know, right on the side, which made them have slop when the wheels were facing forward. You could tell they were indexing. When I turned the wheel like this, it would turn, also it would go, it would just kind of stay there and go like this. There was slop right there. The bearings were like loaded up with grease. They look fine. I just think the kingpins, if I actually probably could have just took the kingpins out and swapped them out. But that reason I would have been able to get away with that is because of this. Because the CV joint, or the Burfield joint, that's his Burfield joint, was loaded up with freaking grease. And because of what, and I used like this kind of stuff. I don't know, I think I used a synthetic in there or something. Maybe it wasn't this one. I used a synthetic marine grade wheel bearing waterproof grease. Filled that whole thing up. So the bearings for the kingpins were like saturated in grease, and so was the CV joint. There's no problem. So this thing got worn out on the side there. So crap, I don't know. That's just how it is, man. What the hell? Anyway, I could have got away probably just changing those things. It could have been done in 20 minutes or something, you know. And that would have tightened everything up. Just by doing that. Just because I did that, and there was so much grease in there. You know, you'll find out later on when you do things, right? So, if you ever have a problem, well, again, 25 years from now, that's what I'll probably do. Well, I got the kingpins installed. I didn't torque down the bolts yet on them yet. They're supposed to be 18 foot-pounds, or around 210 inch-pounds, 18 foot-pounds. And these are tight because the seals are in the back here. You want to check in other words, before I installed in the back here these, and what the hell you call it, a dust shield, whatever it is. It wasn't that tight, and I actually just had a shim on them, one on the top, one on the bottom, and we had a little bit of drag, and didn't do the indexing anymore, so it's good to go. These are supposed to be 8 foot-pounds in the back here, or it's around 95 inch-pounds. These are 18 foot-pounds, or I guess it's 210, actually 216 inch-pounds. Use an inch-pounds torque wrench. I'm going to put them at 200. These I'm going to snug down just by hand and put some Loctite blue on them. I'm not going to even use a torque wrench on that shit in the back. They won't come loose. Not with some little Loctite blue, but I can tell what 8 foot-pounds is. That's pretty light. And you know, I'm pretty much home free now, but I got to freaking mess around getting the measurements on drilling out the rotor for you know, a 6 stud setup versus 5, because I got this 1 year only. It's a 1985 Jimny 1300, Japanese model only. 1885, not even a 550cc, only this model for the 1 year, Japanese model only. It's got six stud wheels and hubs and spindles, and not spindle but the hub, and the brake drum. Pain in the fucking ass, but whatever. Okay, this is where you put the spindle on, and I cleaned this off very good because there's going to be RTV sealant on there, but you want grease inside the bushing. Okay, so we'll get the sealant on there, then this goes on, then that goes on. These 4 bolts go on to get torqued to 21 foot-pounds. That should be 250 inch-pounds, so I want to use that with some Loctite. Okay, those are torqued down 21 inch-pounds, like 240, 21 foot-pounds, about 250 inch-pounds. And I did these with the 18 foot-pounds, around 215 inch-pounds. Well, I know why they don't put inch-pounds on there, because everybody freaking doesn't look good, and they see 215, they go foot-pounds, even though they look at a tiny little bolt. But the inch-pounds torque wrench is probably more accurate. I did Loctite on these. So next, yeah, I'll tell you one thing. This, when I'm doing other things like websites and stuff, when I start getting into this, the mechanic stuff, it takes me a while to adjust my mind to doing this stuff, because I was sitting down doing a lot of freaking website stuff, and when I start doing this, it's like it's a whole nother, even though I've got experience in this, you got to get your mind adjusted to it again. So it's taking a while to do that. Well, this thing I had to kind of take an estimate. The you're supposed to do is put the inner nut on first, and before that you have like a lock washer that's got a tab in it that goes in the slot. Then you put the inner nut in, you torque it down to 57 foot-pounds while you're turning this, then you back it off loose and you torque it down to 10 foot-pounds while you're rotating it. That settles the bearing in. And this, you put the lock tabbing washer in there. And this you're supposed to put 65 foot-pounds. What I had to do was, I don't have a 3/4 inch drive adapter, but I put a screwdriver through here, this breaker bar, and then I used the channel locks. So I got a lot of torque on there, probably around 65 foot-pounds. But then you got these locking tabs. You lock one down on the inner nut, and you lock one up on the outer nut. It ain't going nowhere. So, and gotta put the hub on there. Okay, so I had one up on the outside nut and one down right there on the inside nut, so that locks them in place. Before I put this thing back on, I wanted to get an exact measurement, so that hole's good. And I just see, like when I painted through these, the paint went a little bit on an angle, so they weren't perfectly accurate. So I used a screwdriver going in here directly like that to scratch the paint. So that's the direct, that would be the hole which should be exactly. So I put these back in a plastic bag and put it in there. So I'll have to drill these out and fill in 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. And I got a mini mill, so I should be able to do it good. But no hurry really, I guess, because everything still works. Well, that takes care of it. These were, what were they, 18 or 20 foot-pounds, these things here. And these were 8 foot-pounds. The two giant bolts that hold on, not the little bolts that hold on the brake caliper, but the two giant bolts that hold on the brake caliper assembly bracket are 40 foot-pounds. I've got to find out what the torque is for this. I know you don't really need to do the torque so much if you have experience doing it, but I'd rather do it right. But you notice, see that? That's a needle nose thing. I put it down in between there, got grease inside of there because these are non-greasable fittings. I was doing that, they're freaking 35 years old and that joint is still good. I probably could have got away with just changing the kingpins, because there was loads of grease in there, man, because of that thing I did with the knuckle. So all I got to do is put the tire on it, and that's it. So freaking bought a lot of work, man. I'll tell you, because it's if everything's like real clean, and you're like, you know, you're sitting on a freaking stool or some crap like that, it's pretty good. But dirty parts, cleaning the parts takes up a lot of time. It's like, you got to clean them because you're working with brakes. If you get dirt on your hands, you freaking might touch the brakes. And surfaces that you want to put RTV on, they got to be perfectly clean. So you might as well clean the whole damn part. And then I go over it with brake clean, where the mating surface is, and I use the nylon brush on the drill to clean up any crap that's on there. So that eats up a lot of time. Thing is, I think most mechanics don't do this shit. I mean, they put it together so it works, and you know, you might work for 20 years, it might work for 2. You know, it depends. And to go back to them. So anyway, over that.